Dreaded Farmer, jumping on here with a little bit of some encouragement for you. I was reading this past week's Parsha and came across a passage that really kind of rang true of experiences I've had throughout my life, and I just wanted to share that with you and give you some encouragement this evening. So this comes to you from Bereshit, which is Genesis chapter 45, and this is where Joseph reveals himself to his brothers. His brothers had come to Egypt when there was a famine. They didn't realize that Joseph has been made ruler over Egypt, and they had basically sold him into slavery before, told their dad Jacob that he was dead, and so to them he was dead, because as you know in the Gospels, Yeshua teaches that if you harbor anger in your heart for your brother, it's the same thing as murder. So in the eyes of God, they murdered their brother, so he was gone. So basically they didn't know that he was ruler. And so at this point, he had realized that they had changed. Instead of them taking his blood brother Benjamin and saying, "Oh, sure, take him as a slave. We don't need him. We don't want him." They were actually like, "Hey, if we don't go back with him, my father will die. This is his favorite son." And so even Judah, Yehuda came back and was like, "Look, let me be your slave, so that Benjamin can go back to his father." At this point, Joseph realized that they have changed. They're not the same brothers that threw him in the pit, that sold him off to slavery. And so he revealed himself to his brothers, and then he said something really interesting when they were all just kind of like, "Oh man, here we are, we did such a horrible thing to you." And so he says in verse 5, he says, "But don't be upset, and don't be angry with yourselves for selling me to this place. It was God who sent me here ahead of you to preserve your lives. This famine that has ravaged the land for 2 years will last 5 more years, and there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. Elohim has sent me ahead of you to keep you and your families alive and to preserve many survivors. So it was Elohim who sent me here, not you. He is the one who made me an advisor to Paro, which is the king of Egypt, and manager of his entire palace and the governor of all Egypt." So then he sends him back, to gather the family. So basically, what you see here is you see God's providence in a situation where brothers had so much bitterness and envy that they sold their own brother off to slavery, selling him off to die, because you don't know, once you sell him off as a slave, you don't know what's going to happen to him, right? So you can't say, "Hey, take my brother as a slave and just make sure you take care of him." Once he's off in the foreign land and sold off to somebody else, there's just no telling what's going to happen to him. And then again, as we read in Yeshua's teachings, that if you have anger for your brother, then you've murdered him. So in his eyes, and even in theirs, he was gone. He was murdered. He was done. To actually run into him and encounter him again, and then see that he is in this high position, essentially king of Egypt, just under the Paro, the Pharaoh, and he is in charge of everything. So you see where God literally took a bad situation to make something good. So he literally took the brothers treating their brother evil, with evil, and then created a situation where he would return their evil with kindness. He's literally going to bring them all into Egypt. He's going to take care of them. So it's interesting when you look at that and you see God's providence there. When you look in your own life, do you see God's providence? When I look back in my life, my everyday encounters, I see God's providence everywhere. I see where he has weaved so many different people in my lives for different reasons. Things, where I've received blessings, and then where other people have received blessings. And it's just, we were all put in this place for a time such as this. So I just want you to be encouraged in the fact that God is sovereign. He has power over all. He is the most high God. He is El Elyon. He is El Gibor. So he already knows the beginning from the end. He knows the choices you're going to make. He knows the choices that people are going to make against you. And he can take that negative situation and then he can create good out of it, right? Because we know that he works all things for our good and his glory. So even this situation with Joseph being sold off into slavery, God worked that for their good and his glory. So the brothers received good because now they're brought into a land where their brother is actually the ruler. So of course they're going to get the best of provisions. They're going to live in the best part of the land. They're going to have the most abundance, right? And then Joseph, same thing. God made good on him by giving him favor wherever he went. He had favor in Potiphar's house. And then when Potiphar's wife accused him of rape or trying to rape her, he was thrown in jail, and immediately he was given favor in the jail. So Potiphar put him over his entire household. He trusted Joseph that much. So just like the Pharaoh, Potiphar said, hey, the only person you answer to is me. Everybody else answers to you. And I'm not going to worry about what's going on in my household because you're here. And then he gets thrown in jail. And the most interesting thing happens. The warden of the jail basically puts Joseph in charge in the jail and puts him in charge of everything and says, hey, I don't have to worry about what's going on in this jail, in this unit of the jail, because you're here. So literally God gave him favor even in jail. And then he came out. So God had already prepared him, as being favored by his own father. Basically he was in charge of making sure that he was bringing back good reports from the brothers in their work. Then he gets sold into slavery. He's in charge of Potiphar's household. Then he gets thrown in jail. He's in charge of the jail. And so you see a pattern here where God literally prepared him to rule Egypt. And that's what he did. So God took all these negative situations and made it for our good, the good of the family, and then for his glory. Because in everything Joseph did, he glorified God. Even when it came to interpreting dreams, he literally said, isn't it God that gives me the power to interpret these dreams? He didn't take any credit for himself. So I encourage you not to take credit for yourself. Anything good that's in you is from him. I take credit for the bad stuff, but I give God the glory for the good stuff. Anything that is beneficial, anything that's praiseworthy, that is from him. I just want you to be encouraged that God is sovereign over your life, just like he's sovereign over mine. He has providence over all things in this world, and he is king. He is Melech Tzedek. He is the righteous king, placing things in your path that you may not understand today, but later you're going to understand, wow, that was the providence of God, and he's got me. He is for me and not against me. And I'm just telling you, he is for you and not against you. And he has sent his son, Yeshua the Messiah, the Mashiach. He has sent him to die for our sins, for the atonement of our sins, right? So he is basically the way we get close to the Father. And only through him can we get there. If you seek him with your whole heart, you will find him, as long as he can be found. And on this side of eternity, he can be found. So I pray that you find him today. If you haven't, seek him, and he will reveal himself to you, and he will show you his providence in your life, and you will be able to look back and see, wow, God was in place there, God was in place there, he was doing this for my good, doing that for my good. Even the worst situations that you're encountering, there is good that comes out of it, and God should be glorified. So I want y'all to live it, love it. I want you to share this with someone that needs a little positive word in their life, someone that needs a little encouragement to move forward, to keep on trucking, as they say. And I love all y'all, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. So shalom, shalom, shalom.